So I hope you're gone.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. Oh, good afternoon now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Yep, Nicholas Guarino, Guarino.
And how are you employed, sir?
I work for the Massachusetts State Police.
And how long have you been a member of the Massachusetts State Police?
This is my 9th year now.
Now, prior to working with the state police, what, if any, prior experience did you have in the field of law enforcement?
I was a local police officer in Norwood for almost 11 years.
Now, with respect to your role within the state police, where is it that you work now?
I currently work at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
And within the detective unit, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And with respect to that, what, if any, specialized role do you have within the detective unit attached to the Norfolk DA's office?
Yeah, I conduct cell phone forensics, computer forensics, and I also do sexual assault investigations.
With regard to the electronic forensics, what, if any, specialized training have you received in that particular area?
I have about 300 or so hours of CCO, CCPA, cell phone repair forensics, Burla motor vehicle forensics, Axiom magnet cell phone and computer forensics, X-Ways. These are all different programs used for cell phone and computer forensics.
Now, sir, at some point, did you become involved in an investigation involving the defendant, Karen Read?
Yes.
And with respect to that, let me just ask you, at some point, did you become aware of an affidavit from a defense expert named Richard Green?
Yes, I have.
And sometime following that, did you have occasion to reach out to Cellbrite with regard to what had been posited by Mr. Green as in regard to two Google searches contained within Jennifer McCabe's phone?
Yes, I did.
And eventually, at some point, did you have occasion to speak with the gentleman who came in here right before you, Mr. Ian Whiffin?
Yes, I did.
And so that wasn't Trooper Proctor that had reached out to Mr. Whiffin or had any communication that you're aware of with Mr. Whiffin, correct?
No, I reached out after the defense experts' findings were released, and I read his report.
And did you also have occasion to view a report from a Miss Jessica Hyde?
Yes, I did.
And with respect to those two reports, what, if any, conclusions or opinions did you come to independently in relation to those opinions of Ms. Hyde and Mr. Whiffin? Objection.
Exchange.
Now, Trooper Guarino, you had mentioned that you've had specialized training in regard to something called BODE, correct?
Yes.
Could you please explain to the jury what BODE is and how is it used in criminal investigations in your line?
So Burla is a specialized hardware and software used to download the infotainment and telematics modules in a vehicle. So telematics module is basically like the SIM card for the car, and the infotainment system is your radio head unit that enables you to have Apple Play, CarPlay, or Android or Google Play for the vehicle.
And at some point, you made aware of a search warrant that was authored in regard to seizing the infotainment system from Ms. Reed's vehicle.
Yes, sir.
And just so the record is clear, can you describe Ms. Reed's vehicle as far as what type of vehicle we're talking about?
Yes, it's a Lexus LX 570 SUV.
And specifically on February 2nd, 2022, did you have occasion to remove that infotainment system from the vehicle pursuant to that search?
Yes, I did.
And once that item was moved from the defendant's vehicle, what, if anything, did you do with it?
So we removed it from the vehicle. It was brought back to Norfolk DA's office for a data extraction or attempt to.
And that data extraction, if you know, based on your training experience, sort of how is that conducted, or what is the process of extracting data using BODE?
Yeah. So depending on the system, it's dismantled. They have the specialized hardware that actually goes on to the motherboards of these systems, and we're able to pull the data. Or the other option, if that's not viable, is to do a chip off where we have to basically destroy the motherboard and take the memory chips off the devices to try to get the data that way.
Now, with reference to this specific device, what, if any, efforts did you undergo in order to track the information without using a chip off?
So at the time that we pulled the system, it was not supported. I emailed Burla and called them, see if they had a timeline of when this might be supported so we could get the data. We deem chip off last support, as a last resort because it is a destructive process. So once those memory chips are taken off, the likelihood of trying to reattach them and get it to work again is very slim.
Let me stop you there for a second. When you talk about an item being supported, what does that mean?
Whether or not Burla has the ability to pull the data from that vehicle.
And how is that sort of determined, or how are you able to ascertain whether or not a particular vehicle, make, model, manufacturer is supported by the Burla device?
They have an app and they also have their tech support. But if you put in the VIN of the vehicle, or if you don't have the VIN, you have the make, model, and trim level, like limited or XLE or whatever, you would be able to go in and look it up and basically say, Burla will tell you, yes, it's supported for GPS points, or it's supported for diagnostic data, or, whatever that they're able to get out of the vehicle. And they work with the automakers to get these, get this data. So.
And approximately how many different types of if we're looking at sort of the entirety of different makes and models of manufacturers, if you know, sort of what percentage of those types of vehicles are actually supported and Burla can actually extract information?
I don't know as of right now. It's a lot, and they're constantly updating it, so they are able to do more as time goes on.
Now, at this particular time, as you sit here today, June 17th, 2024, the vehicle that the defendant was operating on January 29th, 2022, is that vehicle available or supported by Burla at this time?
The trim level that the defendant had is not still supported. There is Toyota and Lexus support now, but it's not, unfortunately, for her model.
Now, you mentioned that you had reached out to the Burla company for updates as far as the availability or when the defendant's vehicle might be supported. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And about how many times and over what time period are we talking about that you reached out to ascertain?
Immediately when I did the extraction, I should say extraction, but when I took the system out of the vehicle, I had to reach out to Burla because where it wasn't supported, they actually had to send me tech diagrams so I could go in and, again, not destroy the whole vehicle as I just took those components out. Over the next, almost 2 years, year and a half of going back and forth with them with their support and their sales team.
And when you say going back and forth, how often were you reaching out to them, or how often were you getting a response in regards to the Burla?
Usually every few months, I want to say every 3 months, give or take. I forget the exact number, but phone calls or an email to them asking.
Now, beyond that, are you familiar with a national cyber crime conference?
Yes.
And do you attend that on an annual basis at least?
Yes, I do.
And with respect to that, what, if any, time at those conferences did you spend dedicated to ascertaining the availability or the supportability of this vehicle with reference to Burla?
So Burla has a booth at the National Cybercrime Conference. I spoke with their sales team there. Their response was to keep calling Burla, keep pestering them, and they might actually get the support sooner than later.
And again, were you ever able to ascertain or get the support to download the information from them?
No, unfortunately.
Now, at some point, were you able to download any information from that particular infotainment system from the defendant's vehicle?
Not from the infotainment system, but Burla released a new item similar to a mechanic scan tool. It plugs into the OBD2 port, which is underneath the dash. So we're basically, if a mechanic went in there with a scan tool to tell you why you have a check engine light, this does something similar. So you plug it in, and then it pulls the car diagnostic data from that.
And as far as the data that you received from that, what, if anything, did you observe?
Again, I got a series of 14s was the numbers. It was no readable data. I reached out to Burla and asked them, I said, is there a reason why it pulled this data, but when I put it into the software, it's not telling me anything. It's not giving me any readable data. And they said they know it is diagnostic data, but they haven't got anything from Lexus to say these 14s, these codes mean this. Oh, they only know it as emissions.
So was Burla itself able to read that information and transform that sort of binary code into any sort of readable data for you?
Other than the number 14, no.
Now, from there, what, if anything, did you do with regard to the Burla and the defendant's vehicle?
Was placed back into our digital evidence lab, and then we did eventually do a chip off to the device.
Now, with respect, to the chip off, that was done sometime in December of 2023, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And again, if you could expound upon a little as far as, can you describe for the jury sort of the chip-off process, why you were reluctant to do it, and what's entailed in it?
As I said before, it is a destructive process. As soon as we do it, we take those memory chips off. It's applying extreme amounts of heat to the motherboards to take the memory off. That'll heat it. You lose a lot of the soldering and capacitors, anything that's on that motherboard. So, like I said, once the memory chips are taken off, it's going to destroy the board.
And as far as that chip-off process, who, if anyone, was present with you, or who, if anyone, assisted you in removing that or conducting that chip-off process with regard to the motherboard from the entertainment system from the defendant's vehicle?
I'm sorry, at the time that we actually did the chip off?
Yes.
Yeah. It was myself, AG Speak, and Maggie Gaffney.
And who is AG Speak?
AG Speak is has his own forensic company, I guess you could call it, for Burla. I could consider an expert in the field, former California Highway Patrol officer that exclusively handled stolen cars. She was a defense's expert. She's the one who actually did the chip off, applying the heat and taking the chips off in our presence. And she, I believe, works for, I'm sorry, the name of the company escapes me at the moment.
Now, with respect to the information that you, Ms. Gaffney, and Mr. Speak were able to remove pursuant to that chip-off process, what, if any, usable information were you able to glean from that?
As I was told by AG, there was no data that was recovered off the infotainment system or the telematics module from the chip off.
And as far as Ms. Gaffney, did you have any conversation with her as far as the information that she was able to glean or read or decipher?
No, once she did the chip off, I had not spoken with her since.
You have a moment, Charlie?
Yes.
Now, Guarino, at some point in late January, early February 2020, were you provided with a laptop and/or desktop computers from the home of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, I was.
And what, if anything, did you do with those?
One was a Dell laptop. The other was a HP all-in-one desktop. I removed the hard drives from both systems and used.
Okay.
You are unmuted.
All right, Mr. Lally, you can continue.
So, Trooper Guarino, there was a Dell laptop and an HP Pavilion all-in-one desktop, correct?
Yes.
These were taken from Mr. O'Keefe's home, is that correct?
Yes, they were.
And what, if anything, did you do with respect to those computers?
As I said, I took the hard drives out of both machines. They were imaged, and the images were loaded into Axiom to view the data that was on them.
Now, when you say something was imaged, can you explain to the jury what you mean by that?
Yeah, it's a bit-for-bit copy of the hard drive. Instead of us turning it on and going through it, which would change data, by taking the hard drives out and imaging them, it creates a one-for-one copy, so that way we can view it without changing anything in the system.
And you mentioned a tool called Axiom, is that correct?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury sort of what is that Axiom tool and how does it work?
Yeah, it's another forensic tool that we use. Can do cell phones, computers, to use it to load the images so we can view the data.
And with respect to the imaging that was done with regard to the Dell laptop and the desktop, what, if anything, was it that you were looking for specifically on those devices?
We were looking for Ring video to see if either computer was used by Officer O'Keefe as a login machine to handle the account.
From your review of what was extracted image from each of those two respective computers, what, if any, information were you able to glean in reference to Ring.com or anything
Neither computer was used. One appeared to be used mostly by the kids, and the other, I believe, was the laptop was used mostly by O'Keefe, but there were no Ring logins.
As far as the Ring connection, what, if any, devices were you, throughout the course of the investigation, were you able to ascertain were actually connected to the Ring cameras at Mr. O'Keefe's house?
Officer O'Keefe's cell phone.
Now, if there were any other devices, whether they were Mr. O'Keefe's or someone else, ascertained from either the Ring footage or the information provided by Ring, whether or not there were any other devices beyond Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone that were linked to that account?
Not that I know of.
And I'm sorry, just not that there weren't any devices or not that you could tell?
Not that I could tell or that I ever heard of.
Now, let me ask you some questions just in general about a cell phone extraction. You familiar with that term?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury sort of what is involved in that and how a cell phone extraction is performed as far as your experience with regard to investigations that you've been involved in?
Yeah. Most investigations, we get the cell phone from the scene, from a suspect, from a victim. They're put into airplane mode to preserve the data. So that way remote wipe can't be sent to the phone from iTunes. If we can't put it into plane mode, we'll put it into a Faraday bag, which blocks the cell phone signal. And then it's brought back to the lab and put into a Faraday box, which has electrical outlets inside of it. So that way we can keep the phone charged.
And with regard to this investigation involved in the extraction of data or the examination of extracted data from any particular phone?
Yes, I did John O'Keefe's phone, Karen Reed's phone, and we had two witnesses' phones, but I don't remember doing the extractions themselves.
But as far as the data from those phones, have you had opportunity to look at that data? And specifically, I'm asking about both Jennifer McCabe's phone and Ms. Carrie Roberts.
Yes, I have.
Now, were you also at some point provided with some material from Brian Higgins' phone?
Yes, I saw screenshots of text messages.
And from the material that you were provided with reference to Mr. Higgins' phone, were you then able to cross-reference that eventually at some point with respect to the information in both Ms. Reed's phone and Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, I was.
From what you reviewed, was the information contained within the material provided by Mr. Higgins, was that consistent with what you observed in Ms. Reed's phone as well as Ms.
Yes, I didn't see any differences in those messages.
Now, with respect to starting with Ms. Reed's phone, that was received by you on January 29th, 2022. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you recall about what time it was and where you were when you received that phone?
I want to say 6 or 7 o'clock at night at the Norfolk DA's office.
And who did you receive that phone from?
Trooper Proctor.
And with reference to that phone, what condition was it in at the time as far as you referenced airplane mode, Faraday bag, things of that nature? How was it sort of when you received it?
I believe it was in airplane mode. The phone was in good working order. And it was placed downstairs in our lab plugged in to keep the phone battery charged.
Now, the same with respect to Mr. O'Keefe's phone. When and from whom did you receive that, and what kind of condition was that in when you received it?
I also got that from Trooper Proctor the same time as Miss Reed's phone, same condition.
Now, with respect to the defendant's phone, at the time that you received it, did you have any passcode or any way to get into the phone?
I'm sorry, whose phone?
Ms. Reed's phone.
Oh, no, the software we use to try to bypass passwords to be able to extract the evidence, I should say the extraction of the data to look for evidence. Her phone at that time was not supported.
Now, what, if anything, did you do with her phone in regard to that?
Again, made sure it was in airplane mode and just kept it plugged in until such time as the phone was supported, and then we could download it.
Familiar with a device called a gray key?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what that is and what, if anything, you did with regard to the defendant's phone and the gray key device?
Yep. So gray key is, again, specialized hardware and software used to plug in the phones, can do Apple or Android phones to bypass passwords.
And how does that sort of function, or how does that work as far as when you hook something, a cell phone or a cellular device up to a gray key tool? What is it doing and how does it work?
If I knew that, I'd be a millionaire. But it basically installs software onto it, and instead of when you put in 10 passcodes to an iPhone, on the 10th one, if it's wrong, it kills the phone forever. This has some secret software that's able to bypass that and basically keep hitting the phone with passcodes until it finds the right one.
essentially runs a bunch of different combinations of passcodes into the phone until it comes up with one that actually opens.
Yes, that's correct.
And at some point, did the gray key device actually break into the defendant's phone?
Yes, it did.
Do you know about when that was in relation to when you received it?
Yeah, so we got the phone in January. It took, I believe support came out in, I want to say May or June. I don't remember the exact month, but we didn't actually get the passcode until August 16th of 2022.
And once that passcode was essentially broken into by the gray key device, then you're able to look into the phone. Is that correct?
Yes, once the passcode's obtained, we download the data, and then we're able to take that extraction data and then open it up in Cellbrite or Axiom or whatever tool we're going to use to view it.
And the tools, as far as you're referring to, Cellbrite and Axiom, are you familiar with those tools through your course of your investigator with regard to electronic devices?
Yes.
And if you could explain to the jury sort of when you say Cellbrite and Axiom, as far as then tools are concerned, how do they work and sort of what is it that you do with the device with reference to Cellbrite?
So what do we do with the extractions once we go to open them?
Well, how
Is
is
that-
the information extracted, first of all, and then what, if anything, do you do with that?
So Gray Key will pull the extraction. It just, once the code's received, it again uses its software, pulls the data out, puts it into an encrypted, it's MD5 or SHA. It's a encryption key that has, it's a unique key that, so if you changed anything inside that zip file, it would change the encryption number to show that something was tampered with. We take that encrypted zip file and we open it up in the software, and that's able to say, you know, the call logs, the chats, the photos, the whole timeline of the phone.
Now, in addition to yourself, is there anyone else that works in this sort of capacity within your unit at the district attorney's office?
Yes, 2 other people.
And who are those 2 other people?
The director of our lab, Samantha Vogt, and Trooper Connor Keefe.
Now, beyond yourself, Trooper Keefe and Ms. Vogt, anybody else from the detective unit, as far as the troopers, would they have access to these devices, being defendants, Mr. O'Keefe's, Ms. McCabe's, or Ms. Roberts?
If they're in the digital evidence lab, no. Once the data is extracted from them, normally we give them back to the investigator or return to family. So that would be the only time that they would have access to the devices, or unless we kept them in the lab for just for, I don't want to say safekeeping, but just for storage reasons.
Now, with reference to your review of any of the extractions related to any of those 4 devices, at any point in time, did you observe anything in reference to any information being taken off or deleted from any of those devices at any point in time?
No, sir.
Now, with respect to Ms. Reed's device, the defendant's device, it was sometime in August of 2022 that the gray key was able to break into the passcode and get into the device, correct?
That's correct.
And so then, once an extraction is done, that's then subsequently reviewed by someone within your unit, is that correct?
Yeah, so again, normally the investigators for the homicides know far more information about the crime and what occurred. So if need be, I'll load the phone up for them. They can go through it because they know what they're looking for. If they ask me, I'm happy to go through. If they can say, you know, I'm looking for calls between this time period, or, you know, GPS locations, things like that.
Now, with reference to the defendant's phone, at some point were you made aware that there was some privileged information contained within her phone?
Yes, I was.
So as a result of that, what, if anything, happened with the phone from there?
We notified our supervisors, and we did not look at her extraction until the privileged communications could be removed, and then we could, again, go back and re-inspect the data.
Now, as far as that whole process that was undertaken in regard to that, how long a time period, or when was it that you were able to have the privileged information extracted and then actually get to look at it?
Took months. I don't think we got it back from the AG's office until later, springtime of 2023-ish.
Now, with respect to the extraction from each of these 4 respective devices, that being the defendants, Mr. O'Keefe's, Ms. McCabe's, and Ms. Roberts, what kind of tools were used to conduct those extractions?
Gray Key, Windows 10, and then Cellbrite Physical Analyzer and Axiom, their program, Magnets program.
And so as far as, I guess my question is, as far as the different devices that are used, why are there different devices, and what is it that one does versus the other?
So they both do great work with, decoding the data. I've noticed that Axiom does a better job at pulling GPS spots because it gives a speed and a estimated range of how strong the GPS signals are, as opposed to Cellbrite. They give native location, but they don't have that extra data with it. So I like to look at both tools to make sure that I'm seeing everything that I need to.
Now, with respect to the defendant's phone, you at some point reviewed the extraction from the defendant's phone, correct?
Yes, I did.
And with respect to that phone, what, if anything, did you observe with regard to GPS locations associated with that device?
I didn't see that many, maybe a handful showing different spots in Canton, but nothing that stood out to me.
Now, with respect to your review of the phone, what, if anything, were you able to ascertain as to whether or not those GPS locations were allowed or permitted or turned off or on by a user?
I can't say. I didn't see anything, like I said, that stuck out to me. Normally, if the GPS points aren't there, then location services are probably turned off.
So what I'm asking, though, is the device itself was capable of retaining that data as far as GPS locations, correct?
Yes, if it's turned on.
And there were no real GPS locations to speak of that you observed in your review of the extraction of the defendant.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, with regard to Mr. O'Keefe's phone, what, if anything, were you able to ascertain from that as far as GPS locations were concerned?
There's quite a bit, especially on January 29th.
Now, sir, before we get into that, if I could ask you some questions in regard to Ms. McCabe's excuse me, phone extraction. You had occasion to review that, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And so in regard to that also, you had mentioned that you had reviewed an affidavit from a defense expert or defense witness named Mr. Richard Green, correct?
That's correct.
And based on your review of that, what, if anything, based on your review of what Mr. Green said or did, what, if anything, did you then do with regard to Ms. McCabe's phone?
So I basically went point by point through his report to confirm or deny if what he was placing in there was true.
And what, if anything, were you able to ascertain or learn from going through Ms. McCabe's phone with reference to what Mr. Green stated? Objection.
I'll allow that.
It was mostly incorrect.
And when you say mostly incorrect, what was mostly incorrect?
So he states that there's a Google search that's done at 2:27 in the morning that immediately stuck out to me because when I went back and looked, that file that was parsed was not from the database that should have showed searches. This came from the session state tabs for Safari, which is a big red flag. It also came from a wall file, which is a dropping ground for where data is put before it's actually put into the main database itself. And then once it reaches a certain point, that data is automatically deleted by the device, not by a user, which Mr. Green had stated that a search was done and then it was purposely deleted. There was also items regarding phone calls being deleted. Again, they came from a wall file. Looking at it, again, it's stored in the knowledge seed, the main database. It's also stored in the biome, showing in the extraction, which is another storage area that Apple is using. Again, nothing. Most of the stuff that I was reading in his report was either incorrectly, written down, or he's interpreted it incorrectly.
Now, with regard to the phone calls or the contact that Mr. Green indicated were user deleted or deleted by the user, what, if any, information did you look in regard to that? What did you ascertain in regard to that?
Yeah, so
Deleted or deleted by the user. What, if any, information did you look in regard to that? What, if any?
he stated that Ms. McCabe had deleted 18 phone calls from the morning after John O'Keefe's body was found. Looking at the data from her call log, those calls, while they do show marked as deleted, again, they come from the wall file and they're also located in two other parts of the database. Again, as a user of an iPhone, you can't go in and just delete these files. They're handled by the operating system. It's impossible.
As far as a wall or a writing log file, can you explain that, what you understand that term to mean to the jury as it pertains to these particular items?
Yeah, so as I said, these files are dropping ground. So when you're using your apps, using the phone, takes that data, puts it into this WAL file until you either close the app or you shut down the phone, or it reaches a certain number of data in the phone. That WAL file will automatically delete from the phone. So this can be on a first in, first out basis. Again, like I said, it could be when data reaches a certain level, but those calls that are being marked as deleted, Cellbrite seeing, it doesn't mean the user deleted them. It just means they're being removed from the WAL file.
You indicated that from your review of the phone extraction, there were other areas or other databases within the phone that contain that same information.
Yes, the main database of the iPhones is the Knowledge C database. They're also using Biome, and then if you're using the newer software now, it's another area I won't bore you with, but depending on the iOS you're using for the phone, it's going to depend on where that data is being stored.
Now, specifically with respect to Ms. McCabe's phone, one of the contentions Mr. Green had was in regard to a contact for Brian Albert. Is that correct?
Yes, that was another one.
With respect to that, what, if anything, were you able to find within Ms. McCabe's phone in regard to contact information for Brian Albert?
Yeah, so Mr. Green's report said that he located a deleted screenshot of Brian Albert's contact. That was in her phone. The contact for Brian Albert was still in her phone, not deleted. So I don't know, maybe she just deleted the screenshot.
Now, with respect to Ms. McCabe's phone, what, if anything, did you do with regard to the call log history in Ms. McCabe's phone?
I exported it all out to a PDF so I could view it. And again, like I said, there's, I think, 1,104 phone calls from going all the way back to October of 2020, I want to say. And phone calls, time, the calls are there, all the records, and they're all stored in different areas of the phone. The only ones that show the WAL file deleted were the ones from the 29th going up to the end, towards the end of the day on the 29th.
And now, with respect to the call history, where or how is that typically stored within an iOS device?
I believe that's stored in the call store SQLite database.
And with reference to what, if any, difference storage-wise is that SQLite database versus the WAL file?
So again, yeah, that database where the call logs are sent, it's going to have a corresponding WAL file where the data is going to be put temporarily. And then, as I said, it gets automatically deleted by the iOS, by the operating software. It's not user enabled. And
so from your review of those 1,104 phone call history records containing the extraction of Ms. McCabe's phone, what, if any, opinion do you have in regard to whether or not those items were deleted by any user?
I don't believe they were. And I will say one of the phone calls was from the actual main call stored database. That could have been user deleted but again, it's in two other spots in the operating system. So I don't know how or why the iOS stores it the way it does and then marks what.
Now, sir, from your review of the 4 phone extractions that you reviewed in this case, were you able to export or print certain chat reports from specific people's phones or from specific people's phones with other individuals?
Yes, I was able to.
Yes.
Sir, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 48.
Okay.
Do you recognize? Excuse me. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that?
The first page is Facebook Messenger chats between Karen Read and John O'Keefe.
And what's contained in there, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed from the extraction from Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, it is.
And specifically with reference to those chats between Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant, you also reviewed that material from the defendant's phone as well?
Yes, I did.
Material that you reviewed from the defendant's phone, is that consistent with what you observed in Mr. O'Keefe's?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could request certain portions of what's been marked as Exhibit 48 being published to the jury as we...
Okay.
Sir, if I could just start you out on page 1.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have that up. Now, with respect to what's up on the screen, the portion that you can see, do you recognize this, sir?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Now, within this particular, from the perspective of this is from Mr. O'Keefe's phone, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So there will be blue bubbles and green bubbles, is that correct as well?
Yes.
And so who, as far as the blue bubbles are concerned, who is speaking in that?
The blue bubbles will be from Miss Reed, and the green bubbles are from Officer O'Keefe.
Now, Ms. Gilman, if you could please scroll down. Now, with respect to what's contained on this page one at the bottom, if you could read the date and the time and indicate who is speaking and what is said there.
So the blue bubble is Karen Reed and 1/28/2022 at 3:30 p.m. Hello. John says hi at 3:35 p.m.
Yes.
Those are the Facebook ones.
I'm sorry. What's contained in Exhibit 48 is the entirety of the chat report from Mr. O'Keefe's phone, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I apologize. Showing you another document. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be, sir?
These are the native chats, native messages from John O'Keefe and Karen Reed.
So these are just specifically broken down as far as the chats between Mr. O'Keefe's phone and Ms. Reed's phone, correct?
Correct.
And as far as your review of both of the extractions from both of those phones, the material contained within Mr. O'Keefe's phone is consistent with the material contained in the defendant's phone, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'll move to seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit. Okay.
Okay.
627.
Yes. If that could be returned to the witness, Your Honor, if we could, with the court's permission, if we could publish that.
Yes. Go right ahead.
And now, Trooper Guarino, do you recognize what's up on the screen as the next exhibit? Ms. Gilman, I'm sorry, if you could scroll down just a little bit.
Yes.
And again, from this first page, if you could, the blue bubble is from Ms. Reed, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
And if you could, again, read from this first page as far as date, time, who is speaking, and what is said.
At 9:49 a.m., Karen says, "You've really hurt me this time." 10:02 a.m., "I'm sorry. This is, sorry, it's kind of hard to read. I'm sorry, this has been an issue with me for 8 years. It physically hurts me to see everyone else in their life do things for them, and I'm forced to always be the bad guy." At 10:09 a.m., Karen says, "I am not the same as everybody else. Most of the time, I try to do what is healthy/smart for them. More importantly, I try to support you and what you need. You just lashed out at me and said terrible things. I don't know how you've gotten to this point with me when I'm just trying my hardest. You made the point, I made your point and continue to beat me down. I have a lot going on too. Physically, I'm falling apart and trying to get answers and help."
If I could stop you there, sir. If I could direct your attention to my apologies. Sir, if I could direct you to page 5.
Okay.
I'm sorry, bottom of page 4.
All right.
And starting with the blue bubble on the bottom of page 4, again, if you could indicate as to speaking, what is said, and the date and times.
Karen says to John at 1:21 p.m. on the 28th, "Maybe you can call someone."
If you could continue.
On the 28th at 1:46 p.m., John says, "Like who?" And 1:47 p.m., "What time are you coming here?" And then there is, at 2:05, there's a message, but no content.
And the next message at 2:06, sir.
Yes, 2:06 from Karen. "I don't know what time, feel kind of out of it, just trying to clear my head." 2:06 p.m., John writes back, "Okay." 2:06 p.m. again, Karen says, "Text me later when you guys settle in later." Text me when you guys settle in later. John says, "Sure," at 2:06 p.m. again. Karen says at 2:16, "I feel pretty shitty about this, feel pretty shitty about how this morning went down. I know you said sorry, but it really stung, especially when I've been trying pretty hard lately. I feel like a loser turning around, just coming back over after everything you said."
If I could ask you to continue on to page 7, sir.
Okay. At 2:17 p.m., John says, "Not sure what else you want me to do. I said I'm sorry and I was out of line. If you prefer to stay home, I totally get it." Karen replies back at 2:17, "Things in my own life have been difficult too, you know." John writes back at 2:17, "I know." At 2:25 p.m., "Tell me if you're interested in someone else. Can't think of any other reason you've been like this." From Karen.
Good. Continue on to page 8, sir.
At 2:25, John responds back, "Nope, things haven't been great between us for a while. Ever consider that?" That was at 2:26. At 2:29, he writes, "Kids are here, not in the mood to talk. So you're not into it anymore. That's fine, but I don't want to keep trying and you keep treating me like this." At 2:29 p.m.
If I could direct direct you to the next page 9.
Yep. Reed says, I'm trying to hug and kiss you this morning, and you whack me in the face with a pillow at 2:29. At 2:30, she says, last night you're basically like, yeah, what about? When we talk about the future, so why don't you just admit you're not into it so much anymore? 2:30, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I would say 2:30, John says, not how it went down, but okay.
Now does Ms. Reed respond to that?
Can you please admit your head is out of the game with us?
If you could, sir, please continue on.
At 2:32 p.m., sick of always arguing, fighting. It's been weekly for several months now. So yeah, I'm not as quick to jump back into being lovey-dovey as you apparently. From John. And then John again at 2:32. Oh my God, stop calling.
Stop you there. With regard to January 28th, you were also able to extract a report specifically in regard to calls received by Mr. O'Keefe on that day.
Yes, I was.
I mean, on that date into the next date of January 29th.
Yes.
I approach Your Honor.
Yes.
There we go. Guarino showing you a document.
Okay.
You recognize that, sir?
Yes, it's John O'Keefe's call log
And that's the entirety of the call log from January 28th into 29th. Is that correct?
from 28th at 9:19 a.m. to the 29th at 6:03 a.m.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm about to seek to introduce the minutes on this exhibit. No objection. May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
We're now showing you another document. Just ask you to review that, look up when you finish. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, this is Karen Reed's call log from January 29th at 12:33 a.m. to January 29th at 6:03 a.m.
And those are specifically calls between the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
No objection. Now, Trooper Guarino, from the text messages that you were just testifying from, Mr. O'Keefe indicates OMG stop calling at 2:32 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, from your review of those call logs, how many times did the defendant call Mr. O'Keefe on January 28th from approximately 9:19 a.m. to about 2:58 p.m.?
There's 18 calls from 9:19 to about 2:59 p.m.
Those calls are listed within those records as various as far as rejected, or missed, or answered, or things of that nature. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
How many of them are rejected?
11.
How many of them are missed?
4.
And how many are answered?
3.
Now, following that text message at 2:32 p.m. from Mr. O'Keefe to the defendant asking her to stop calling him, does the defendant keep calling?
Yes, she does.
And at some point, does Mr. O'Keefe call Ms. Reed back?
Yes, at about 3 p.m. on the 28th. Double check.
Thanks. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino, I can take each of the call logs. I want you to.
Okay.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention back to page 10 on the text message with respect.
Okay, so Mr. Lally, when you put your head down and when you walk away, we can't hear you. And so there won't be a record of this. So you have to keep your voice up. Well, you just said, you just put your head down and your voice went down. So keep your voice up. It's really important you do so.
Trooper Guarino, turning your attention back to page 10 of these text messages, would read from Ms. Reed's response to Mr. O'Keefe at 2:32.
Yes, so 2:32 p.m. She says, why would you start with me this morning? And then followed up by 2:33, you're setting me up to fail.
If I could turn your attention to page 11 and ask you to continue from there.
Ms. Reed says, you start a number of fights from your end. John, and that's at 2:33. At 2:33, John writes back, I've explained it a few times already, not doing it again.
And how does the defendant respond to that?
So you're not into this anymore. And then John says, not into fighting all the time, correct. That's at 2:34 p.m.
If I could turn your attention to the top.
Yes, 2:34, Ms. Reed says, if you tell me you're interested in someone else, you will never hear from me again. You can have all the space in the world. John writes back that there's no content at 2:34. And then at 2:34, she says, then stop starting with me.
How does Mr. O'Keefe respond to that?
At 2:34, he writes back, I'm not answering, stop calling.
And if you could, if I could turn your attention to the top of page 13.
Ms. Reed says, can you please answer after how you treated me earlier? John responds back at 2:35, Kaylee is right here. Ms. Reed says, you're starting a rager with me out of nowhere, and then you tell me you're sick of fighting with me at 2:35. And she writes at 2:38, I'm going to grab a drink in a bit.
If I could direct you to the top of page 14, sir.
She says, can you answer please at 2:38? He writes back at 2:39, no, Karen, not sure why you need to announce that you're going drinking, but have fun. Karen writes back at 2:40, seeing if you want to meet me later. Can you please call me right after that?
And again, if I could direct you to the top of page 15.
John writes back at 2:40, have to take him to the doctor. He has practice. Ms. Reed writes back, yeah, 5 minutes. John writes back at 2:43, my father just walked in. Karen writes back, okay, can you please call me for 2 minutes at 2:44.
The top of page 16, sir.
2:44, John writes back, not right now. Karen writes back, I'm there when anyone else needs me at 2:44. At 2:46, yes, John, you gave me utter grief this morning. I'd like you to call me for a minutes.
And the last one from that page.
2:47, I've been trying to get over the hump with is arguing, and now you tell me you're not into things. And if you don't want to fight weekly, but fly off the handle at 8 a.m. with me, like you're setting me up to fail.
Sir, if I could draw your attention to page 42.
Okay.
And sir, if I could ask you to start reading from the top of page 42.
Yep. At 7:41 p.m., Karen writes, okay, let me know if you end up leaving. John writes back at 7:42, why? Now you're not coming? Karen writes back, I'm waiting for the plumber. Actually think he's in the driveway. 7:42. John says 7:43, we're taking Mike's car, so I'm relying on you for a ride home if he leaves. Karen writes back at 7:43, he's not going home after. John writes back at 7:43, 8 on a Friday. He may have to get Michael, and you have a plumber coming over at 8. Knowing me and Papa could have handled it. Good luck. And that was at 7:44.
Thank you, sir. If I could direct your attention to page 49.
Okay.
If I could ask you to start from the page 49, sir.
8:29 p.m. Yeah, but he lives right down the road. John writes back at 8:30. Karen, this storm is going to be intense. Can't drive. 8:30. She writes back, okay, well, if he can't, he can't. John writes back, I'll do it Monday. Responds at 8:31. I better not still have this problem on Monday. John writes back, plan on being there. Karen writes back at 8:32. I'd like to know I could take a hot shower here if I need to. John writes back, figured you'd be in Canton until Monday.
If I could direct you to the top of the next page, 51.
John, I'm getting off my phone. Let me know what you're doing. Karen writes back at 8:33. I think the four of us together is toxic to this relationship. Would like to limit it. And says, you've said so yourself for probably a year now. And John writes back at 8:33. Blizzard tomorrow. Nobody is going anywhere.
Sir, if I could direct you to the top of page 52.
Karen says, maybe I'll come back late tonight. Bad snow in the early AM. That's at 8:35. And again, 8:35. I'll head up there in a few minutes. Let me know if you leave. John replies back, sure. And then the next one's not until 12:55 in AM on the 29th. I'm going home.
And the I'm going home is from the defendant. 12:55 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And if I could direct your attention to the top of page 53.
Yes, 12:55 again. See you later. At 1:02, your kids are cucking alone. 1:29, 1:04 a.m. I'm back in Mansfield. The kids are home alone.
Thank you, sir. May I approach the retreat?
Yes. Can I see counsel at sidebar about scheduling?
You are
With this witness, but can we go until 4:15? I know it's been a long day, but does that work for you all? All right, thank you very much. So why don't we do that, and then I'll talk to you about scheduling after.
you are unmuted.
May I have one moment?
Yes,
May I approach this retreat?
yes.
Now, Trooper Guarino, you were also able to get some chats as well as some phone calls between the defendant and certain individuals. Is that correct?
Yes.
And may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing you two documents.
Okay.
And do you recognize those, sir?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The single page is Karen Reed to Laura Sullivan phone calls, or I should say, calls from Laura Sullivan to Karen Reed. And the other one is Karen Reed and Laura Sullivan's chat messages.
What's contained in those documents, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you were able to extract from the defendant's phone?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'm about to seek to introduce the minutes and exhibits. No objection.
Okay.
No. Thank you. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your documents, sir. You recognize that?
Yes, these are Karen Reed and Erin O'Keefe phone call.
And what is contained in that, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed conducting the extraction of the defendant's phone with regard to the communications with Erin O'Keefe?
Yes.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes. Okay. There's no objection, Mr. Yannetti, right?
No objection. I'm very sorry, Madam Clerk. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's previously been marked as exhibits 51 and 52. That's if you recognize those.
Yes, these are phone calls between Karen Reed and Katie Camerano. And 52 is chats between Karen Reed and Katie Camerano.
May I approach this to retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes.
What's contained in those exhibits 51 and 52, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed during the extraction of the material from the defendant's phone?
Yes.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, showing you what's marked as exhibits 94 and then 95.
Yes. Sorry. They are chats between Karen Reed and Jen McCabe, text messages. And 95 is Karen Reed and Jen McCabe phone calls.
And again, what's contained in those records before you, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in the defendant's phone during the course of your extraction of materials from her phone?
Yes.
Yes. So these are already in evidence, Mr. Lally, so that you don't need the fair and accurate depiction.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes. Jurors, you know what? I'm going to send you home. Okay? So I need to see counsel at sidebar for just a minute to figure out the next 2 days.
You are muted.
So jurors, we will
You
be
are
in session
unmuted.
tomorrow, but you won't be. All right, so it's very important that you don't watch TV or listen to anything, or read about anything. So we will be here tomorrow. Wednesday is the federal holiday, so we're not in session. I know there's supposed to be some big heat wave this week. I really appreciate that everybody dresses respectfully for court. I suggest you come in comfortably. It's an old building. The air conditioning's been great today. I don't know that that will hold up when really pushed. So feel free to dress comfortably. We'll plan on seeing you on Thursday. If that changes, the court officers have your contact information. But we're planning on seeing you on Thursday. All right, so please, those 3 cautions: do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it. Let us know. We'll see you Thursday.
Rise for the court, please.
All right, and Trooper, you can just follow out behind them. Okay, thank you. you tomorrow.